Let's play that trophy game 50 times, I guess, just because I can. The Bombachu thing is open at night, too. So just because I have rupees to blow, honestly, that's why I'm doing it. I don't know what else to spend them on. I'll spend it on a stupid fish, I guess. So we're trying to get to the very end, which is just dumb luck. I guess I could just try the same one every time, but it doesn't matter. It reminds me of the Far From Subtle moment where I think he does it like on his first try without the Lens of Truth. And I think he even picks the same chest every time, so we might see this again. I like how they're still around. Obviously not the whole crew, but like Becky and Fraser are still doing it. Gotta respect that level of dedication. They moved to like Japan now. Alright, let's go through here. Thanks a lot. Let me play again, you clown. I have to go in and out every fucking time? I want you to scam me more efficiently, dude. I'm begging for it. I'm a little kid and I'm addicted to gambling. Just let me have my fun, dude. I'll tell you when I've had enough. It's kind of fitting that you can only do this at night, but still. A kid like you shouldn't be up this late. The guards would say, or they shouldn't be out this late. A loser. That just makes me want to win more. Your negative conditioning doesn't work on me. My will is fucking unflinched. So it will actually make me be able to do it way more times than 50 because it'll keep giving me, even if it gives me like the 5 rupee. I mean, it doesn't really matter which one you pick, right? But I guess it's less likely. You should alternate them because the odds are against you in picking the same one every time. That's even more unlikely than just picking randomly. So I'll just do it, whatever. Or I'll just alternate, maybe? I don't know. The odds are not in your favor. Like, it's super unlikely to do this. But I'll just go till I don't have any more rupees, I guess. For fuck's sake. Oh, it was in the other one. I should just remember that for next time. Ha ha ha. This is the kind of thing you could just do. I don't even remember what it gives you. But it wouldn't matter what it might be just a heart piece or something. It wouldn't matter what it gives you though because it's going to be different now. So it could be very important. You would never know. That's kind of the annoying thing. So maybe I'll just alternate. I'll go left to right, top, bottom to top. Come on, dude. Imagine if these chests were randomized too in the sense that you could get items from each and every one. That would be kind of too much. Even if only one time each. Come on, dude. But yeah, like the mini games give you... it's like he's trying to stop me from doing it. Gambling all my money away. He's actually a decent guy. This reminds me of like the pawn shop thing in the second game. That scumbag with the bird uses. He has the bird steal stuff and then he gives it back to you. Okay, we can do it, what, 45 more times? I don't know if I have the patience for this shit, dude. Actual gambling stream. Still better than opening loot boxes. If you're allowed to do that shit to encourage fucking gambling. I love all these streamers who criticize it and then they do loot box opening stream. Like, Asmongold criticized it for so long. Microtransactions and stuff, and then he does it in like Apex or whatever. It doesn't really matter what you do it in. It's just like everybody's critical of something until they just want to benefit from it themselves. Whether it be like, whatever, criticizing certain things about Twitch culture. Like he'll criticize whatever, the e-girl culture, and then he'll go out with pink sparkles. Like what the fuck, dude? Alright, give me a good streak at least, like 3 or 4 in a row. Although there's no need to really do that. Just give me the whole thing. Look at how unlikely this actually is, though. Kind of nuts. I forget how many rooms there even are, but even if it's like 4 or 5, it's like flipping a coin 5 times in a row and getting the same result. Or even just calling the result correctly. Whether you call the same thing or not. See, it's less likely, but it's not less likely at the same time. Right? The likelihood of calling it heads 5 times versus heads, tails, 5 times. You might say, if you're calling specifically for the possibility of getting the same result every time, it's less likely. But if you just happen to call that way, right, like it's hard to explain, but it's some sort of flexible probability. If you go into it with the expectation that it'll be the same every time, then it's less likely. But if you just happen to get it, it's not less likely. So it's like an ego-based thing, like thinking the probability revolves around you and the fact that you witnessed it happen just before, right? Every time you flip, it's the same probability to get heads or tails. But because you saw it be heads before, now you think it's less likely to get it twice in a row, right? But they're independent. You're the one who makes the sequence out of it. The act of flipping it is still the exact same. Come on, dude. I can't even get string like together two of them. And my masterful understanding of probability does not help me here. So at least we can do Zora's Domain and a whole bunch of stuff with Zelda's Lullaby. I feel like there's still something to do in the castle. Holy shit, this is the most boring thing to do ever, though. Which I don't have to do, but it could. Maybe I do have to do it. I can't even say that I don't. Maybe I'll get hard locked unless I do this specifically. And you theoretically can, right? It's just super unlikely. Or it'd be a dick move if the game makes it. I mean, I know that's not true, but it'd be a dick move if the game makes you think you could still do it like this, theoretically, but it just kind of makes sure that you can. So you need the Eye of Truth, not because of poor probability, but because the game just forces you. I feel like there is a mechanic like that on the tip of my tongue from something, right? Where it makes it seem like you theoretically could do it if you're patient enough, even as extreme as it might be, but it literally just stops you from doing it internally without letting you know that. That's kind of a dick move. So somebody could spend like an eternity trying, thinking that the odds are just against them, but it's really not. Dude, come on. At least give me like a 2-3 door sequence. I feel like I was getting luckier at the beginning. This is the kind of thing that the game might force you to do. Now, this is where it becomes transformatively more unlikely. Like one more. Ah, so close. Fuck. Huh? I think that's actually it. What did the spoke too soon. It almost seemed like it strung together some. Once you get one in a row, you get on a streak. But that's just like a gambler's fallacy, right? I hit this number 3 times in a row, so I'm going to keep doing it and then lose the money I just won from doing it in the first place. It's like a pattern that you can identify with the dealer. They have a certain way of doing it. I mean, that one was pretty good. I thought I actually had it. I think that might have been the last one there. I just have all these rupees. I don't know what to do with them, so that's why I feel bad for not doing this. That way if something comes up later, at least. It just feels like a shame doing a dungeon and getting like hundreds of rupees that you can't pick up. This is pretty utterly stupid, though. I am not the type of person to like doing this, especially. Fuck. They keep giving me rupees back, too, so like that makes it even worse. Or better, depending on how you look at it. Okay, I really wish they would let you string them together, but I guess they're trying to discourage you from gambling in vain. Because once you get the Eye of Truth, you can just do it in one try. It's not like I'd still fail even then. I'm that much of a clown. Come on, man. I can't even complain. Like, the odds are stacked against you. I could work out the math. Like, how unlikely is it really to do this without having the eye? Kind of represents the game as a whole under this randomizer mode. Just dumb luck. That's all this run is. Whether I can finish it or not, which I'm assuming I can. It's been such a fortuitous thing. Every time I nearly think I'm just done for, it somehow helps me out. Not that it really is, it's just, if you keep digging and digging and digging for more items, eventually you're going to get something that you need. It just happens at just the right time for me to not feel completely hopeless. It's almost like the Obra Dinn playthrough. These two games have something in common, not just the fact that I'm playing them at the same time. There are so many times where it's like, I'll spend a whole stream, 5 hours, trying to make one connection of 3 people, and then I do it at the very end when I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. Alright, come on, come on, come on. We were literally like one room away, I think. It's amazing how you get stuck on this one, like 5 times in a row, and then you'll do it where you go 4 rooms in one streak, but that's how it works. Like, at least give me some deep runs, like 2 and 3 keys sometimes. So that's like 1. You need basically like 5, I think. I mean, you can alternate or you can do the same one every time. It's equally unlikely. I guess I could just do the same one every time, but it's stupid. Not even tall enough to read the sign. It says no kids allowed, but he doesn't care either. Like, really, he should say something about that. Open the chest. He doesn't even mention the fact that we're a kid. The good thing about the Zelda's Lullaby pickup was even if I didn't have the hookshot and I couldn't go in the temple, I could still do it because you would have the option of just getting it outside. So that would still have been a game changer. So the songs can be very impactful. I think that's one of the most annoying elements because there's so many songs that aren't really that useful. I guess the Spirit Temple one allows you to get there at a time where you wouldn't be able to, but most of them are not a big deal. Even like the Shadow Temple one, you can get there with the hook shot. But yeah, like the Fire Temple, you can get there anyway without it. So stupid. Why am I even doing this? 34 more times, but it's going to be almost double of that by the time we get all these rupees back. Like, I'm actually complaining about getting free rupees because the whole reason I'm doing this is just because I have them. So theoretically, you could get locked into doing this forever if you get like the 20 rupees and the 5 rupees enough times. Probably not, but it would just take forever. I love how I got the adult's wallet and the giant's wallet back to back. It just was totally a happenstance, but I did the little thing in the Lost Woods where I shoot the slingshot at the guy and then like slingshot darts, and then I did the Cuckoo quest in Kakariko Village, and both of those gave me a wallet one after the other. So I wonder if it somehow makes it still procedural, like they would give you a wallet guaranteed so that item type is set, but it's not going to give you the giant's wallet before the adult's wallet. But I don't think that's really true. I think it can just give you whatever. But like, for example, I got the hook shot from Gerudo's Valley just under the, or just in a chest, I think. There's just a random chest sitting there. And so if I had the, or it couldn't be the long shot, but if I had gotten the hook shot maybe somewhere else, it would have been. So like, it's a tiered system. It's hard to say whether it works like that or not, but so far I have yet to leapfrog an item directly like that, although theoretically that's not true because I got the fire arrows before I got the bow. So it's not exactly the same thing, but where it just kind of overlaps. Or like, for example, you get the full magic bar before you even get the smaller one. I just don't know how that dynamic would work. So we got at least 30 more games in us here. So stupid. I don't know why I just feel... And it's going to give me something generic. It'll just give me rupees or some bombs or something that I already have. Now, the whole idea with bombs is it technically gives you the item of the bombs if you don't have them already, right? The same way that a magic jar would. So, in that sense, if you didn't have bombs yet, it would be consequential. But I guess I wouldn't have been able to get to this point without... No, I could have still gotten here, but... Bombs was like one of the first items I got. You got Din's Fire, fire arrows, and bombs super early. I got Din's Fire instead of the Kakiri sword, in fact, and I couldn't use it for a very long time because I didn't have magic. But actually, you can just leave now too, but I don't know why you would do that. Actually, I haven't really had a very good use of Din's Fire yet. See, now you're thinking, oh, let me do the bottom one. Just because, oh, I've gotten that twice in a row, but there's no such... That's not really how probability works. Yeah. Now I feel like, oh, I should just pick the same one every time. Oh my god. So I'll check out Zelda's castle after this one more time. I don't think there's a bean thing there, but there's like a little hole just before, I think, where you wake that guy up. Then I'll do Death Mountain, and then I'll do Zora's Domain. Although this might take like the whole time. So we can check out those great fairies at least, though, because I do want to see what items they'll give me. We get the key. Let's see what else we got here. I guess I'll just keep alternating, like there's some theoretical line. It almost seems like it's more in the top. See, now you come up with, in your sort of desperation, it's like belief systems in real life, right? People feel so hopeless and powerless in their lives that they start to come up with different superstitions and rationalizations and logic. They can't just admit that, oh, we're just pathetic and we have no control over anything, even amongst ourselves, like blaming other people who are in positions of power for your own problems. Never mind the powers of the universe, like nature and, you know, forces you can't control. You could just have a fucking heart attack or trip and fall and die. But even that you could blame yourself for, like the elitist victim blamer conversation we had before. I really love that that was the title people gave me. In this day and age, you could get in a lot of trouble for that, but I didn't come up with it. That's just what described me. You had to be there. It's just like to be so firm with this belief in human ability and will. The flip side of it is, okay, if something happens, it's your fault, because somehow, some way, you could have accounted for that, right? Even if you die, like, okay, like if you die at a certain age, like you only live till you're 60. You could have done so much to live till you're 80 if you really wanted to, but you chose to smoke, you chose to drink soda, this and that. So that actually was a pretty good pull there, but oh, they give you the same rupee color as the room that you're... No, because I've gotten the blue rupee from the first one. I guess it's just a lower chance. 269. But yeah, like, so it's like a longevity argument versus hedonism, or like experience versus length, right? People have a certain philosophy in life that it's not simply a zero-sum assumed length priority, right? The goal in life for people isn't just to live as long as possible, although there's sort of an underlying assumption of that, right? But they balance that, or they fail to, by their own standards sometimes. That's why people are so conflicted. They fail to balance it with sort of the experience. Like, oh, I want to eat enjoyable things, or I want to do things that are unhealthy, but that I like to do. And so you have to balance the two and realize this is a very simple thing that you could say to yourself, or sort of define for yourself, that most people don't. Like, what is your actual measure? Like, okay, I want to live till I'm 65, and I also want to engage in these acts of hedonism that'll cost me lifespan, whether it be, you know, drinking, unhealthy habits and consumption, using drugs, whatever it might be, being lazy and not working out, which could hurt your health too. Just so many things that you choose to do that show not a total commitment to the longevity process. So it's not even saying one is better or worse than the other. It's just you have to decide that for yourself, rather than just blindly and aimlessly going through life and saying, okay, now I regret what I did because I never really thought about it. Or just accept the fact that, you know, you're willing to sacrifice length at times for certain indulgences with some level of reason. Because people can say, oh, they care about their health and this and that, but their actions don't often show that. Right? You're showing like a lack of value for your own life by doing that. Like, I drink soda. That's a very unhealthy, horrible thing which you shouldn't do. Especially in regular quantities like that. How many more times, dude? 23 more times. Oh my god. This is exactly the kind of thing that I hate to do, like farming effigies in Dark Souls, which I only did a couple times, but it is what it is. Yeah, that was a good discussion, like longevity process versus... I could turn this into like a self-debate, like play devil's advocate during a time period like this. Okay, so let's do... What was another good discussion? Okay, like the love. Okay, love is a lie, or sort of... Love is a false absolute that requires constant reinforcement through externality. That's the short name for it. So it's basically... This was a pretty good and long discussion that we had. So the idea isn't to make a claim, it's to take a claim that is made by others or in sort of a societal level and deconstruct it a bit. So like, okay, let's look at love on a basic level, right? Sort of the non-accountable false absolute. And the idea with that is, okay, there's a few layers to it, right? So I'll be using some of the terms that we discussed and came up with in those discussions way back in the day. Okay, we start with the nearness postulate, right? So if love, first we're posing love as an absolute concept. So for example, this is the kind of shit that I'm gonna have to do to kill time while I'm doing this. This is amazing. Alright, so the nearness postulate would be that basically you're posing the absolute that, oh, okay, this person's the one I meant to be with for my whole life, right? The one and only in the whole world out of 8 billion people. It happens to be somebody who went to the same school or lived in the same area or worked at the same job, right? That's how people meet. So it can't simply be an appeal to your own ego that you want to believe it's an absolute. Alright, so it's an appeal to the ego in the sense that nearness postulate, all those factors provided, goes against the notion of the absolute. So the claim maker is the person who's saying it or living sort of according to that, basing, you know, a major part of their life around that structure. So it goes to the objectively adverse and finite argument, or just something as simple as, how could I say that more simply? Just, what is it? I hate some of these long-winded terms, but they're actually... Originally, the idea behind them was to simplify a concept that otherwise people would take forever to explain, so it actually makes it easier. But just objectively adverse and finite, or you could say that sort of the inherent man or inherent instinct. So for example, without the constraints of society or indoctrination and constant reinforcement of some of these ideas, people would naturally do what when it comes to sex, or the stimuli acme we call it, or just sexual stimuli in general? What would people do? Would they just have sex without any regard, or with everyone and anyone as much as they want? And so in order to specify it for like a family system, or encouraged by certain societal norms and stuff, you're saying, okay, I'll do something that's objectively adverse to myself or my own instinct and desire, just so that I can specify it and create like a family system, which is good for kids, or, you know, social systems. But for the individual, that tendency or sort of instinct still exists, that they would want to just do it across the board or without restraint. So in order to justify and rationalize that restraint, that absolute is posed. And so the first problem with it that exposes a non-absolute state would be the nearness postulate, right? Out of everyone in the world, how could it just be... All this is under the assumption that it is an absolute. You would have to hold this accountable in that way. You would say, what are the chances that that absolute connection would be with someone who happened to be in the same area as you, right? On average, you can always pose anecdotal counter arguments, but that would be one element. Then another element would be, am I actually going to get this within the next 15 or so attempts? The other argument would be that I mean, all it would take is one of these points to disqualify the absolute, but right, you have to hold an absolute absolutely accountable. That's the whole inward fallacy that often things which are held as absolutes are, not only are they not held accountable, the whole basis of them being considered an absolute requires them not to be questioned, right? So sometimes the belief systems and religions do that, where it's like, oh, you just can't question it, right? Like, oh, you'll offend people, or somehow you'll be punished for doing it. So it's like, oh, it goes without saying, or we don't even need to think about it. We just take it for granted. It doesn't require any thought. But not that it doesn't require any thought, that it requires no thought, because any amount of thought would invalidate it by its own definition or standards, right? It'll pose an absolute, but it won't let itself be held accountable to that same standard. What were some of the other points we made there? Like, nearness postulate was a strong one. I can't remember what the... let's think about it. Fuck. Yeah, speaking of my memory being bad, this was such a good discussion, too. I wish I had saved my VODs back then. I've made such an extreme point of doing that now that I have like 3, 5 terabyte external drives, a 16 terabyte external drive, and they're all filling up now. Because I stream so much, too, like 6 hours a day on average, at least 6 to 8 hours. So imagine how much space that takes up. The VODs actually aren't that big, though, to think about it. Like, an 8-hour VOD is only, like, 20 gigs, which really isn't that bad. I somehow expected it to be more, even in the high quality and whatnot. Yeah, getting back to that. Trying to think, like, where we jumped off of. Okay, the inherent man aspect. And so, another way to identify a false absolute would be a requirement of constant contrivance or reinforcement through externality. The idea being that, right, so people would say constantly every day they love each other, right, to each other, or again, anecdotally, you could say, oh, well, I've been together with somebody and I haven't done that in 20 years, ha ha ha. It goes without saying. But the idea that you have to do that, right, an absolute wouldn't require that, and other, obviously, ritualistic things like, okay, weddings or any sort of celebratory thing, anything to sort of remind you almost, to try to convince yourself that it is absolute in the absence of it actually being that way. None of that would be necessary if it was just an absolute state of being. Instead, it's a constant contrivance that people have to struggle to maintain. So then it's a choice factor, right? It's not a question of whether you can sustain that contrivance or not, but just that you're exposing yourself to the conflict of contrivance, meaning, all the problems associated with it are purely your choice. Because you're posing a false absolute and then you're trying to maintain that illusion even for yourself. And so that's why you see whatever factors you want to point to, high divorce rate or any sort of issues therein that people complain about with relationships come out of that oftentimes with this posing of the false absolute. So the claim maker now is in a position where no other claim is being made, right? The person observing this isn't going to say, oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be with just one person. It's just like any conflict that person would have, they realize it's their own choice and part of their own structure that they're doing or that they're pressured into doing by society and other sort of indoctrinative forces. Holy fucking shit, how hard is this to get, dude? We really did it like well over 50 times. This shows you the... Holy shit. Maybe they made it easier somehow in the 3DS version, but you would think it's the same probability, because I think that's what Far From Subtle was playing it on. VGA. But seriously, I think he did it like on the first fucking try. Just as a random, without the eye, obviously, just like this. And I think he picked like just the same one, like the top one every time. I'll try to copy his strategy. Come on, dude. I mean, I can't really expect this to go any differently, but still, it's strange. I'm just gonna stay constant this time, which you would think might make it more unlikely, but it's just a total crapshoot either way. Every single room is a 50-50 shot. Maybe that's the secret, just stay on the same chest. It maybe just saves time. Nah, it's just fucking stupid. So yeah, we talked about the nearness postulate. We talked about the... Man, it's so hard for me to remember or gather my thoughts on some of these. We talk about the inherent man aspect, the inherent instinct tendency reflected in that, and then the conflict of contrivance that is self-created. And then you have... So, for example, looking at it that way, this was part of the inherent man discussion, just the idea that... Right, how many of modern, or not, even the modern aspect doesn't matter, because then people use technology and machination process to justify, like, oh, well, you can avert a lot of that, right? You can overextend it, but look at like what would be an inherent conflict, right? You're a human being, you're living in the jungle, right? You're a Neanderthal, you're a caveman, and so you have to eat, otherwise you'll starve to death. Eat a certain amount, a very small amount, maybe relative to what people consider to be acceptable today. All right, so that's one example of an inherent conflict. Or, you know, you need shelter or you'll die in the rain or in the cold or something like that, in the weather. Those would be basic inherent conflicts. So if you overextend it to like something involving the stimuli acme, like we said, that would mean that not only is it self-created, but you're taking something that's an inherent instinct and turning it into a conflict, again, to specify it, because you overextend it. So what would be sort of a base conclusion? It would be, let's say, the village of 100, right? If the world was a village of 100 people, I always use this as an analogy, right? That would remove any such need, because you wouldn't need to contrive or limit such things because there'd be so few people. So it shows you it's something that's only done due to a higher, I won't even say like overpopulation, but just a higher population of people, sort of the assembly line concept. Anything, yeah, we only have a few left that we need to do. It'd be cool if we clutched it and got it before the end, but even if we don't, basically all I wanted to do is clean out my rupees. So I just have to remember for next time I'll do Zelda's Cat. Basically I got nothing done, but even Zelda's Lullaby is a pretty big milestone. I'll take that. I've been complaining about that from the beginning of the game, but it's just like weird, man. There are certain things you need for so many things, right? You can't do like half of the game without Zelda's Lullaby. You have to open the crypt, you have to open the, you know, open Zora's domain, both as a kid and an adult, I'm pretty sure. You have to... Loser, 5 rupees. Yeah, if you get like the 20 rupee every couple of times, you can still kind of equalize and do it forever. So we've spent 500 basically on this. Actually more, because of some of those refills on rupees. And so this is the average experience you would have with doing this, unless you're super, super lucky. Anecdotally, it's just not viable. But it is cool to try it in a run like this, because it could have some relevance. It just depends what item that's going to be, and we won't even know, of course. I don't remember what it gives you, actually, normally, but I feel like it's something really mediocre, like a heart piece. So you would need that to complete a 100% run. So let's say you didn't use the Lens of Truth for some reason. Like, there's no way I can 100% the game like this. It's impossible. There's no possible justifiable way. Oh. I'm trying to do the impossible right there. They should have this mini game in Luigi's Mansion, because it's so satisfying to open the doors with the little animation and then the sound and stuff. I would actually sit there and wait through it. Little creaky doors and stuff. Some of them will be fake doors that damage you and stuff. At least the door opening animation here isn't too slow, at least. 5 times. Then at least I won't feel bad roaming around. You know, there'll be a purpose for opening those stupid rupee chests that suck up an item instead. Or just from cutting grass and this and that. It just feels like some sense of progression economically, even if I don't have much of a use for the rupees. It would take a while to get 500, you know. Normally, I did kind of farm, which, you know, it's like you complain, oh, I don't know what to do with my rupees when you farm them out in the first place. I guess the only justifiable time to farm was to get the fire tunic, to be able to do the fire temple, which I still couldn't even do. I feel like that's just impossible, because you can't just materialize a key out of nowhere, right? So keys are dungeon specific, so you just can't do it. Unless there's some key that I'm missing in there. There's nothing I can even do like with the bow and whatnot. Maybe pretty interesting how I've only gotten 1 bottle. That's like one of those things where there's so many of them, like not like a heart piece, but it's one of the higher quantity items. It's pretty shocking in getting so many things. We've only gotten 1. I guess I know where one of them is. We can get it with the fish in the area before the fire temple, but I don't know exactly how to get up that thing. I feel like that's a bean sprout thing too, but maybe I should check that when I go to Death Mountain. It'd be ridiculous if out of all the times to get it, we get it at the very end here on one of the last 2 or 3 attempts. Again, probability is not exhaustive, so it's possible I had it one time, but then maybe I went out just on instinct, like, because I'm so used to just going out. Like, I wasn't paying attention and I just walked out with a key. And that would have been the run, but no way to know that. But yeah, it would be some stupid mistake like that that keeps me from doing it. After all that, dude. Now I'll farm out another 500 and do it again until I get it. No, I'll never fucking do it again. I just have to remember to come back here if I do get the Lens of Truth at some point ever. That would allow me to do the well and to... Well, I guess... it wouldn't allow me to do the Shadow Temple because you're not guaranteed to get the boots in the well. In fact, you're almost guaranteed not to. Could be the last one unless I get like a 5 rupee plus thing in here. There's a lot of stuff then we gotta do. We gotta do the both fairies and Death Mountain. We gotta plant the bean, theoretically. It just feels weird being in a place surrounded by fire, lava, to have a bean place to plant. It just seems odd. This will be the one. For all the marbles, can you do it for me? Imagine if it was. That would be even better extreme probability because it's like your last chance. Trust my faith with the bottom chest. So stupid, dude. Fuck it. Oh, we get one more though. It's gonna... What if it just keeps giving us a 5 rupee every time? Well, oh, no. It would have to give more than that. It'd have to give a 5 and then a 20 sometimes. In fact, we need a 20 on the next one to be able to do it again at all. Imagine if it was randomized in such a way that there were a finite number of rupees in the game. Like, you couldn't pick them up randomly. You can only get them from chests. And so when you run out, you run out. You'd have to manage that aspect too. Which is clearly not the case. In fact, it almost forces you to do the opposite. There might be times where you have to farm or do so. Okay, that's a fitting way to end. First room, green rupee. Fuck you. This dude made like 1,000 rupees off of me, but not really because he's giving some back. That's the beauty of gambling, is you always had the chance to make something, but then you throw it away yourself.